بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to Bayut Real Estate Bites with Mahmoud Alburai. Today we focus on law number 6 of 2019 that replaced law number 27 of 2007 on what used to be called owners associations. I have today with me two great experts from the Dubai real estate market, Dr. Shahram Safai, a lawyer and partner at Afridi and Angell.
Pleasure.
Great to have you with us today. Great to have you back.
Thank you.
And we have also great experts, Khalifeh, who is the owner of Kingfield Owners Association Management Company.
Pleasure.
Great to have you, Samar. Great to have you, Dr. Shahram. We have a lot of questions, and we're expecting such questions because we just had the law introduced recently. So a lot of questions are related to the law itself. The first question coming from Wa'il Al-Haj. Can you please explain this law? What does it benefit me as an investor? So there's a question, what does it mean for an investor? If we start with Dr. Shahram.
Sure. Listen, this law centralizes control of owners and the duties that are there, with the RERA and the government taking a specific role to ensure that quality standards are met. And so Dubai, with the amazing growth that we've experienced over the past 20 years and what's going to come, which will be even greater, this law is a formula that brings developers together with owners, management bodies, as well as owner association companies, and with the supervision of RERA and the land department, allows the framework to be implemented. So in that way, it's beneficial to investors, it's beneficial to them, maintaining the values of their properties such that they are well maintained at a reasonable cost. That's the intention of the law.
Very good. Doctor, to follow up on this question, how is this law different from 27 of 2007? What are the key differences, if you can tell people?
Yeah, so we do have to say this is a significantly different law. Law 27 of 2007, just a little bit of history, was a law that was based on an Australian law. It had many concepts that were native to Australia and countries like that. This law is natively drafted for this jurisdiction. So if in, for example, the Australian precedent and in Law 27 of 2007, the old law, there was a owner association with certain obligations and duties. In this case, there's an owner's management body, and their role is more advisory, and they're working with RERA and they're working with the owners association companies as well as the developers in a cooperative manner. Whereas the old law set up parties in almost an antagonistic way. There are two different models, but I think that is probably the key difference here, the difference between the owner association that existed before and the owner's management body which exists now, if you look at it from an owner's perspective.
Great. Samar, I want you to comment as a real estate, as an owner association management company. Absolutely. You have to now to deal with a new law. What does it mean for you? What are the changes that you're expected to deal with?
I think to add on Dr. Shahram here is liability. Under the old law, law number 27, owners association could be sued and can be sued. Yeah, so they can sue and be sued. It's there in the law. Yes. What happens today under the new law, the danger of being sued has been shifted from the owners association directly to the managing agent, which is us or whoever is managing the project. So the full liability now lies on the management company. And what I think the benefit adds to that is that accountability is there. We have to perform to a very high standard of professionalism in the market. RERA will be constantly appraising us, inspecting us in various ways, spot checks, through audits, through budget, who's going to come and talk about these things. So it should give confidence to the investor. I think to add on Shahram's point of view, it should give confidence to the investor that this property is managed to the highest standards and accountability is there by the managing agent, whether the management company or the developer, etc., or the master developer. This is my take from the project.
I want to come back to this, Samar, but Dr. Shahram, again, now instead of owners association, we have owners committee. Instead of being voting and choosing your owners, now it's a selected committee, right? As per the new law,
Correct.
up to 9 people from that committee.
Correct.
What does it mean in terms of the power given to owners? What does this translate into reality? In terms of, at the end of the day, I am, as an investor or owner, I care about the service charge.
Correct.
Will I have more say, more control, or less control now?
Correct. And I think you've hit the nail on the head, Mahmoud. That's exactly, I think, where some of the focus of the discussion is going to come. And to sort of balance that discussion. Some people may say that as a result of this centralized function, perhaps service charges will go up because there's going to be this administration, etc., and the owners may not have as much control as before under the old law. Now, so that may be something that can come up, because before there was an owner association. That owner association was an entity unto itself under the law. It could sue or be sued. It was to have its own bank account, etc. But you have to understand that was actually not implemented fully. So there is that sort of discussion. But theoretically, the owners were on their own as a group, and they had an entity and they had powers and duties. In the new law, the owners act more as an oversight advisory group. They interact with RERA. If there are issues, they can always raise the issue to RERA, and RERA can investigate the matter, and there are duties owed. But it is a different standard than what existed before. So what's going to happen with service charges? I think Samar is in a better position to answer what he expects. But some may say that perhaps because control has left their hands, maybe service charges may increase or decrease. I would say to that, just a note, that really service charges have always been regulated by RERA. Service charges could not be levied until RERA approved them. That does not change. So I'll leave it to Sam.
Samar, this question, but I also want to add a piece to it. The developer, where is the developer in the new law? What is the power of developer? A question coming from Georgina Fayad saying, can the developer take owners committee place or not? So if we combine the two questions.
I think to add on Shahram, well, the way I look at it and what I've been experiencing as our company Kingfield the last year and a half is that owners will have more control and rights under this new law. I know it doesn't sound like it, but allow me to elaborate very quickly so I can move to your point. While Dr. Shahram saying that, okay, they were in limbo, it wasn't enacted fully, the law, etc. So the owners really couldn't force things on the management companies. They couldn't force things on the developer, they couldn't. It was a trade-off, always a trade-off. And where does the balance lie? And what are the intent or not intent of the managing agent, or the board, which may consist of many people with the developer, etc. So, in this new law, it clearly states that we have to perform well, but the controls and the monitoring is with the owners itself. The developer can be on the owners committee, or provided he has unsold units, or he owns a unit, etc. If the developer have sold all his units, he cannot be in the owners committee.
And this means he doesn't have any control. So the news that we're saying now, for the non-mega projects, and we'll come to that question, the developer, he doesn't own any properties in the buildings, so basically he's out of the management.
This is my understanding of the law.
But he's liable for all the submission of documents and stuff.
Yeah, correct. That's something else. The DLP period, which probably going to talk about,
sure.
etc.
There's a question from Joseph Kraz. Does this law apply to the free zones area as well?
As far as I know, it does. The intention, I mean, so long as the free zones are within Dubai, which they are, and they don't have any specific law to the contrary, there's no reason why it wouldn't. So my understanding is they do.
So it's actually applying to the whole Dubai area. So initially, about 7-8 years ago, some areas were given some special treatment legally, but now it's not the case. So the whole Dubai is subject to this law. Khalid Ataoud saying, who's responsible for maintenance by law? Who's now doing the maintenance?
Well, the management company is fully responsible for all the maintenance of the common area and common assets of any project you live in, Khalid. So the full liability and the full accountability falls back to the management company of maintaining such things, such as your lifts, chillers,
But Sam, if you give us more information, the owner or the management company is just taking care of the common areas, right? And we talked about this in the Arabic version of this, but again, if we can repeat it, for the inside apartments, this is not the job of the management company, right? Just to explain what...
Well, yes and no, and I'll jump to that. When we say we manage, let's say a building, it has 100 floors, which we manage something like this, and we don't just manage and maintain the assets. We still have to manage the community as a community, with its people fighting, with its loud noises, adhering to the law, making sure that everyone follows the community rules, issuing fines, etc. So you're managing everything. However, what's inside your unit is inside your units. So maintenance, let's say, of your appliances, maintenance of your systems inside your units, what is defined, that is on the owner's responsibility, unit owner's responsibility, and not the management company.
Great. Dr. Shahram, question from Rena Mainon. How does this affect me if I have invested info plan property? I think off-plan. Property that is partially handed over. Will I incur any more charges?
Will you incur any more charges? Well, I think that there is a provision in this law that says that there'll be a 6-month transition period from when this law is gazetted. It comes into the official government newspaper. So within those 6 months, everyone who is subject to the law has to comply. Right now, we have documentation which has been given. I won't use the word filed with RERA because it hasn't been filed. It has been given and received by RERA. Based on the old law, these documents have to be updated, I suspect, because this law is different than the old law. And so I believe that there is some nominal cost that's going to be incurred depending on the status of your project and how big and how complicated. But I don't anticipate that it would be significant.
I don't know if any service charge will be different, because whatever service charge is fixed by RERA, no one can charge anything more than this.
Correct.
So on the operating side of the property, there will be no changes.
There's a process for it.
There's a huge process.
Budget approvals and all the way. Ima is asking Samar, how will this law help improve the quality of living in the newer developments?
So managing communities is not just repairing assets or maintaining assets. It's a whole ecosystem we have to look at. So it starts with your experience when you enter the lobby, and this is what we are striving now as management companies. Not just do the basic. We have to look at how to make you happy in your community. Are we doing events in your community? How are we tackling your complaints? There's a complaints procedure. RERA's imposing questionnaires. It will be questionnaires directly to the owners about how do you feel in your community? Are you happy in your community? So whatever is coming, and it is coming very fast, and in some communities it's already been implemented, you will see that there is a higher standard of living, more interaction with the community, and and attending to people's requests immediately. This is, and RERA will be looking closely at this to make sure we comply with such things.
Great. Dr. Shahram, there was a question on the honors committee. It's not now. It's a different way of honors. I mean, it's different from 2007.
Yes.
Can us as owners be part of this committee? If yes, how? This is Noura safe?
Yes, so you can be a part of the committee. Certainly, you'd submit your name to RERA as a candidate who wants to be part of the committee. RERA then selects, I believe, 9. But there are certain standards that you have to meet. You have to be a member in good standing, have paid your service charges, and various others. But certainly there is a possibility for you to be there. There'll be a selection process that's going to take place.
Mm-hmm.
I think taking this point, I want to congratulate RERA by launching a new system called Mulak.
Yes.
And now this is the tool where this law can be implemented. People will hear about Mulak very soon. If they haven't heard about it, they will hear about it. I know I don't want to talk about it too much.
It's been around for a
There was
while.
a question actually on Mulak. So
Okay,
we'd love
then
to
I'll
know
jump
what
to
is
that.
Mulak and what does it mean for honors?
Mulak is a platform that has been created by the Land Department and RERA that will govern how we operate completely. So basically, service charges will be issued by the system Mulak. No longer Kingfield will issue a service charge on its letterhead just like that.
Mm-hmm.
But to comply and having your service charge issued by Mulak, there's a huge process where we have to comply, including they audit how we do our budgets, selection of service providers, down to verification of unit balances, making sure the correct names and addresses, etc. It is a complete system that will govern. And in it, it could be a possibility, Shahram, which I cannot confirm now, but through Mulak, owners will be contacted to be on the committee.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on this, but I think because in system Mulak, they know who paid service fees and who haven't automatically. They will know. So I think the selection probably will go through us because we shouldn't be involved in the selection of the owners committee.
Yes.
And I know that RERA is working on a regulation. This regulation will detail how is the process of selecting owners and so on. So we're still waiting for regulations to come by 4th of November, I think, 2 months from the issuance. So a lot of details will come later. But the question on Sam, if we go back on the process, what is the process of calculating service charge? Where does it start? Who audits it? How does it go to the...
I'll give you a live example because it's always good that people have a live example, and I'll be quick. Let's talk about 2020 budget. Let's not look back.
Sure.
Yeah? So now what it says, 2020, everybody has to go through Mulak system, right? So I cannot be as Kingfield, not be in the Mulak system to operate and to issue service charges. So, for instance, what we have done, 1st of July this year, we started tendering for all your service contracts, cleaning, security, maintenance. We've completed that already. And now we're creating a draft budget. Okay, so we invite 6 suppliers, 6 facility management companies, 6 cleaning pool companies, and we do analysis. We sit, we create a budget at the moment. Under the new law, I will send this budget to the owners committee for their review and if they have any comment on it. So sometimes I think 7 heads or 10 heads better than 1 head, etc., which comes into play. We take their comments as long as it doesn't contravene with the law, then it is considered. Then what happens? There is a third-party auditor licensed by or approved by the Land Department RERA that will come and audit how I did my budget. Meaning what? Have I selected properly? Have I allocated resources properly? Cleaning this month. Is the retail, how much share of this should be on the retail, how much on the residential? They will go into analyzing every line item in the budget, how it's made, why the selection was made, and then they have the audits of 2018, financial audits. They see what I have spent, each line item, and they will say, well, why you want to spend more money? Everything has to be justified to the T.
So Samir, you're giving us assurance that the government is taking care of the owners through auditing, validating numbers,
Absolutely.
every single supplier, every single thing.
It's not an easy task. Last year, 2019, where Kingfield has issued most of its budget through Mullah, budget review took us 4 months to complete. It is not an easy task because we're back and forth. Why? And based on that, then RERA will approve the budget.
Can I ask a question? Do you think this, I mean, it's a lot of work and it's very good because the centralization, I think, contributes to quality. And the quality was good, it'll become even better. But it sounds like many tasks. Do you have a sense that service charges may increase as a result? That's my concern. If I could.
I think if I judge between 2018, 2019, we were implementing most of this in 2018. End of 2018, beginning of 2019. So 2019 to 2020, I don't think there will be a jump because there's a downward pressure also to select properly. So if I look at our managed projects, I don't think there will be any change in the services because we already accounted for it in 2019. We have accounted for the third-party audits already. So.
Anthony is asked in the same regards. Anthony is asked, are service charge now set and fixed by the new law? I mean, we kind of covered it, but
nothing is fixed because every budget is different. A building might need this year to replace the ropes, the lift ropes, which can cost a lot of money, or structural defect. So no budget should be the same from year to year, but it is stringently controlled. If that's a good answer to say, Anthony.
In terms of RERA's role, there's a question from Marina George. What is the RERA's role now and how is it different from before? Does the new law give RERA more power, more audit, more oversight? How does it, I mean, the role of RERA changed now?
Yeah, I think RERA had oversight under the old law for sure, but my reading of the law and the intentions that I've heard is that RERA is being given, as well as the Director General, being given much more power as far as supervising and ensuring things proceed as described and discussed here. That should be a comfort to people because really the controls over how things are done and to make sure that everything is done in a standard way and a controlled and efficient way have been in RERA's hands over the past few years. And so the law seems to even build on that more and give RERA more power.
Great. In terms of Summer Owners Committee, question from Fuad. What does Owners Committee have to do?
I think Shahram touched a little bit on this. I don't think there is much what it was before than what it is, to be honest. There is oversight of our roles and maintenance of the assets. So, because some buildings won't have a resident manager. There's a lot of cases in Dubai where a building doesn't have a resident manager overseeing the operations. We might have a manager being shared across buildings. So they will monitor the common area, common assets, etc. And so they will have an oversight over the management. They will raise the issues to us. We have to comply within 14 days in writing. Failure to do so, they have the mechanism to go to RERA and raise the subject there. So we have to make sure that we follow the law. They will take complaints from owners, and when we say occupants, let's talk about occupant, which could be a tenant, could be an owner who's living in the unit. So complaints, they will receive complaints and they will address complaints to us. Because remember, if a building doesn't have Kingfield manager sitting on the ground, their role is probably more involved than what is. So it's oversight. They will look at the repairs. They will advise RERA if there's anything structural needs repairs. So it's an extension of the way I look at it. It's an extension and arm that these resident owners committee have to look after the property themselves. So they have the power. When we said they don't have, yes, they do have power. And oversight.
Yeah, oversight power. I think it is slightly different than Law 2007, you talk about it theoretically,
Yeah.
in the sense that even having the power to sue or be sued tells you theoretically how much more power they had as opposed to now. So if we're talking about it in a balanced fashion, I think it's important to point that out. But effectively, I think owners have to understand that even though theoretically under the old law, that was there in theory, in practice that never actually happened. And so in practice, the implementation was different, and it was catered to fit this real estate market, this region's legal practices, and social norms. And so you have to understand that laws that bring in sort of other concepts may not work here, and that's I think what we saw under the old law. This new law complies and understands those social and legal norms and works with that.
I mean, it's just to jump in quickly. You know, you need the professionals to manage. Yeah.
Yes.
And we don't expect the owners committee to take time off. They're not being paid or anything to do the role of what we're supposed to do and the stringent controls they have on us. Yeah. So this is, I think, a very important point. And they can recommend to RERA the removal of the management company.
Yes.
This is important. Can you elaborate more? So before it was the owners association, they can decide on removing, appointing, with a process, although practically had an issue. Now the committee will recommend to RERA, right? Correct. This is the process. But RERA will have the final say.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'll tell you why. Previously, in the previous law, yes, they can recommend removing, but the management company have signed with the developer. So legally, how would you remove the management company? Unless some. So now RERA is giving you, the owners, the power that if we fail miserably or don't follow the rules and regulations, etc., which we will be fined anyway if we don't comply, they will recommend to RERA to be for us to be removed, and they can recommend replacement companies.
Does the duties, this is from Wala Hunaidi, does the duties of the committee cover the plot itself or only the built-up area?
No, it covers, I mean, the property is the plot as well as the built-up area. For example, imagine that the grass is outside the built-up area, so of course that's covered. So it's the entire border, what's within the border of the plot as well as what's built on it. That's contemplated by the law.
Sure. Does gas supplies, water, AC fall under what owners association take care of? This is from Ahmed. So
all the mains that are coming, let's say you have a chiller that supplies cold air, AC.
Yeah.
That's under the scope of the management, your service charge. Anything related inside, which is not related to supply. So let's say we're supplying the mains gas through a tank farm or etc. We have to take care of the actual maintenance of it and signing the contracts on behalf of the owners. Same as D1, same as district cooling supplying the AC. So,
but AC, if we focus on it a little bit more, Sam, there is the AC of the common areas and the AC inside the units.
right.
And I think the bill that comes, what does it say? Does it say the whole building and then you divide it, or
there is two ways of look. Well, there are two ways. When you have chillers, these supply cold air to the whole building, whether it's internal and whether it's the common area. The common area will be calculated in the budget. Yeah, an allocation of your internal use is also in the budget through a separate line item. What is the direction is to have what we call BTU meters be installed. Because what RERA is always after in the land department is fair distribution of fees. And usually AC constitutes, let's say, 40% of your budget. Expense of a budget, 35 to 40 is just the cooling. So you need to apportion this fairly. I am a firm advocate of having BTUs installed, which can take readings and measurements, and then we can adjust to the unit owner according to his consumption. So it's a fair usage.
Are these expensive to install, or are they?
They're not cheap, but we're looking at ways how to do it through either getting the installers to finance it over 10 years, or we're looking at various scenarios now how it can be done. And we've implemented it in some buildings, and slowly we can implement it. But this is crucial.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Great. Summer, sorry, Dr. Shahram, I want just to follow up on the same question on people sometimes underestimate the why do we pay, let's say, 10 or 15 dirhams per square foot every year, and we don't see the value. So what is the value? I mean, what are we paying for? You're saying 40% is energy, right?
Just like that. I mean, if you wanna, yeah. I mean, service charge really related to the common assets and common areas of your building. It's not related to your units, inside your units. So you need your building maintained well. We need to pay the utilities to your building. We need to make sure your building is clean. Because all of this goes back to the investor. And as a unit owner, you are an investor. So we need to maintain your asset and have the value retained, not depreciate. So you can rent it higher in due course, or the value to increase. So ultimately, if a building is well maintained, well managed, what you will see in the market, because now the market has been, I think, more or less, we're getting there into a happy medium, hopefully. The differentiation will happen. Is your building well maintained? Is it a happy environment? Is everything is going fine with it? That has a certain value. It will retain value. Or your rental, you will have less units which are not occupied. So it's maintaining it as a value asset. So we need to raise your value.
Questions on Instagram. Roba saying, what are the fees I have to pay for the committee? Actually, the fees are not paid to the committee, right?
No, fees that you have to pay to the committee.
Yeah.
There's no fees that I know of.
And the committee is free, right? They're
It's
not
free,
getting
yes.
money.
Correct. They're free. I think yes, they're not paid anything to sit on the committee. Of course, they have to be conflict of interest free. You know, you have no skin in the game. Yeah, as far as I know, it's open.
Just fees and coffees, Shahram.
A question in Arabic, I will say it in Arabic then I'll translate it. هل هناك أي تغييرات في قانون تسليم العقارات من المطور? Is there any change in the law when it comes to handover from the developer to the owner? The handover process, Dr. Shahram.
As far as I know, the handover process is still the same. That they have to complete, once completion occurs, then it has to be handed over. I don't think that the obligations on the developer have been diluted in any way, and owners are still there. There must be a minimum of 10%, I believe, of owners registered as owners for the committee to be formed. So maybe that's something that is of consideration, but that's normal. I wouldn't say that's anything strange. But the obligations that were on the developer to hand over, to build as much as possible on time, and penalties on them, as far as I know, has not changed.
There is one item I saw, I don't know, when's the start of the DLP? I think this is everyone, and this is we face a lot.
Defect liability period.
Absolutely, defect liability period. Now the developer is liable for 12 months.
Yes.
From the building completion certificate. So the building is finished on this date, the clock starts, especially for common areas and repairing inside the units. However, if a unit owner doesn't accept his unit for whatever reason, let's say there's a 2 months delay for him to accept that, you know, there things needs to be done, etc. My understanding also on this one is that the DLP will start from that day, let's say after 2 months, and transfer 12 months. So we have that part because we faced a lot of issue before on when will this start, when will this end.
Yeah.
I think if I might jump in on this one.
So in terms of liabilities, you have two types of liabilities on the developer. One is in the 12 months, right? And one is on the 10 years of structural defects.
Absolutely.
Major structural.
Major.
So in a project that developer is out of that committee, let's say a project, it's not a mega project, the developer sold all the units, so practically he's out.
Correct.
What kind of guarantees exist that in the 10 years we can, force developers to fix certain things or pay for certain stuff?
I think this has two parts which are very crucial. The law stipulates 10 years, so he's liable. End of the story. no arguments asked. But to be fair for the developer also, I think management companies, which we are implementing now, should have every 3 years structural warranty inspection by third parties.
Yes.
Because the last thing you need to come is after 10 years and you tell the developer, well, the repairs will cost you 10 million.
Yes.
He will say, what have you been doing for the last 10 years?
Yeah.
Haram. And at the end of the day, we should help all parties achieve this. So if we do this every three years, it gives us a chance to repair.
Correct.
Yeah.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, sure.
So insurance may play a part in that. So sufficient insurance cover to cover major structural repairs, for example, over the 10 years. The other thing for owners to understand is that under UAE law, under the Civil Code, there's a liability on architects, engineers, and contractors for that same 10 years. So not only is there a liability under this law, as well as the previous law for 10 years on developers, which we know about, we're discussing, but under UAE law, there's also that parallel liability for architects, engineers, and contractors to the extent that there's a defect that's resulted in this structural issue.
Great.
So it follows everyone.
Correct.
Question, and I don't know who wants to take the lead on that. Could you elaborate on the 3 types of jointly owned properties? Who are the stakeholders in each of these situations? A question from R.M. So there are 3 types
I
according
think
to the law.
there's 3 classifications. There's what's classified as large projects. I mean, the actual classification of what is a large project will be issued by the Director General, I believe. But I mean, we can consider, let's say, a huge master community area. It's considered a large project. Yeah. Again, who is in charge of that one is the developer or let's say the master developer.
Yeah. So Sam is saying that for mega projects, according to the law, the developer will continue to choose the management company, right?
Correct. Provided that management company adheres to the same conditions which we are doing. So
but RERA will choose the owners committee.
RERA will choose the owners committee on the master committee. Now the second category is hotels, like hotel apartments, hotel or this kind of classification. Specialized hotel management companies will manage the interest or administer the common area maintenance and cleaning. There might not be an owners committee in this case. There might not be an owners committee. But if they wish to have an owners committee, then it's fine. Then RERA will choose. Third part
is the general.
Is the general where everybody will go. So that is directly developer develops a building, hands it over to RERA. RERA will have a selection process which will be fair into selecting which management company to administer its affairs.
But regardless of which classification, they will be subject to the same laws, regulation, audit, service charge calculation.
Even the owners committee are subject to the same laws.
Yeah.
So that to be on an owners committee, you must adhere to those laws as well. So I think this is important to mention.
And most projects, I presume, would fall into the 3rd category.
Yeah. Which is the general.
I mean, a lot of the directions will come soon.
Yes.
Will clarify a lot of things.
Yeah.
So we might not be able to answer everything today, but eventually directions will come out and it will clarify a lot of issues.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we receive questions. إن شاء الله بنسوي لك حلقة باللغة العربية. أبو خلدوم إن شاء الله نحن سوينا لغة عربية الحلقة السابقة ممكن تتابعها ترجع إلى موقع بيوت موجود الحلقة مصورة وإذا عندك أي سؤال اسأل باللغة العربية وإن شاء الله بنجاوبك. We have some people asking in Arabic. We'll try our best.
Shahram, you'll answer.
I'll do my best.
Question on at what stage of development will this owners committee will be set up? So when do we set up the committee?
I'll give you the text answer and then I'll hand it over to Samar to tell us the practical answer. So as I said before, it says that when 10% of the owners are registered. Now, at what stage that happens is a question. Generally, it happens after completion, and once 10% is registered. That's generally how it's been. I would expect that's going to continue because it wouldn't really make sense to set it up before completion.
It's the owners committee, not the owners manager.
Yeah. Remember, there's no more owners association, and this is replaced by the management company. So the law says that owners association is replaced by us with its liability, with everything. So we're liable for it.
Yeah.
Committee set after 10 units have been registered in the register, assuming after BCC, building completion certificate, is correct.
Yeah.
So the building has to be
30
completed.
days to set it up.
Sure. The building has to be completed.
Absolutely.
Not when we set it as off plan. So there is no need for committee. Great. There are questions on insurance. I will come later because I'm sure you have a very interesting story that people should listen to. The question on how it's different from the original law, we already answered this question. We don't want to go again. What are some of the criteria involved in choosing the facility management company? You mean the management company, not facilities management. What are the criteria?
I mean, I cannot speak on behalf of RERA what the criteria will be put for us to manage, but from practical experience, I know the criteria, they will be very strict. So, are we meeting deadlines? Are we adhering to the law? Are we preparing audits on time?
Yeah, but this is in choosing. Let's say I have a building, doesn't have a management company. How is the choice of that?
Now, all of this, so if I'm doing all those things good, and I'm on time, and I'm not delaying, and I've done the audits, financial audits, and I've done the budget, and I have capacity as staff, then I am available to be chosen. So what probably will happen, but I cannot speak on behalf of RERA, whoever is available in those companies that have finished those criteria and capable, they are in a pool. Probably there will be a tender issued by RERA or a selection committee that will choose. To be honest,
so this is not yet to be
absolutely not.
Okay. So we're expecting regulations to come, and there's a question here: when the law will be implemented? So according to the law, it's 2 months, right?
Yes,
from the time
that's
it's issued.
Correct.
So we're expecting maybe 4th of November the law will be implemented, and we're expecting by that time we will have the regulations ready from RERA on what consider a mega project, what's not, what are the criteria, and so on, right?
Correct.
I think there's one thing we should not. When we said about MULAC and the criteria and everything and how your money is protected as an investors, we have established escrow kind of accounts, let's say special accounts, that are governed by very strict rules how we can expense money out of it. And you cannot have 2020 budgets approved unless, and 2019 even so, without you have opened this account.
Great. So each each building in Dubai will have a separate account from the developer, right? Assuming, because some people say we don't want to pay to that account, this is not managed.
No, this is not managed by the developer.
Exactly. This is managed by the management company.
Let's say your building is Y building, it is called Y building, and it is governed strict rules how the bank is allowed to release money. So it's like an escrow account, so the money is well protected. Even we cannot expense with it unless we fill certain criteria how to expense.
Barney Fudge asking, what are the things that fall under the developer's responsibilities as per the new law? I think we kind of answered it, but maybe if you answered again. What is the developer responsibility?
Well, the developer is responsible, certainly the 2 major projects, for appointing, managing or appointing the owner association, the management company, or the hotel management company. That's for sure. Also, the documentation has to be put together, is being put on the shoulders of the developer. So the developer has a role in completing and setting up the system for the law to be implemented. And then in the 3rd category, which is the bulk of the properties in Dubai, the developer then removes itself after completion, is no longer involved, except if it owns units, unsold units in the building. It's just another owner. And in that case, the owners get involved with the management
good. We need developers to develop.
Yeah. So they
That's
have
what
time
we
to
need
develop,
developers
right?
to do.
Do what their
Focus
task
on
is.
development.
Yes, not after management. Yes. Correct.
Question on insurance. What is covered under the insurance clause in the new law? Question from Marwan Masri. Sam, you have a very successful story on insurance, but before that, the current insurance, what does it cover?
I think Shahram can jump in here and assist since he's from the legal standpoint. Insurance must cover the full reinstatement value of your building, not 75%.
The full.
The full. Okay. So, if this building, to rebuild this building costs 200 million, we need to insure it for 200 million. Number one.
Including the land, right? The land is
Of course.
So this is property all risk, what we call. So you have two types of insurance, property all risk and public liability. So under property all risk, you have to insure it fully for reinstatement. I mean, the list is huge,
yeah.
the clauses, but I'll just jump quickly. So you have to fully, you have to make sure you add clauses in it for emergency. That means if you have a fire, or you have a flood, or you have HADA, are you covered, not covered? Where do you put the people if there's a crisis? So all of this, what I've been doing the last 1.5 years with the land department here, we were having sessions on what should be as a bare minimum in insurance policy.
So what's the minimum now in the law?
The law we will see, I mean, where it stipulates that, but I'll tell you what we have in our policy. It covers all of this. It covers up to 14 days emergency accommodation. Because if emergency happens, you have people on the streets suddenly, where do you keep them? You need to put them in hotels.
Summer, it's the time, I think now.
I think
Tell us
to
more
go
about
back
your
to the
story.
story, yeah.
One of the towers, we don't want to name it,
Yeah.
they had a fire, and you had to deal with people.
Twice.
So tell us what you've done and how the insurance helped.
It starts on your insurance policy.
Yeah.
I mean, if we don't have those covers, we would have been in trouble.
Yeah.
Big time. So, like I said, we've insured properly as what we have said. We made sure that when people were running out on the streets, etc., we made sure there is a refuge area being arranged. And we immediately have arrangements with hotels. So we do this study. Whenever we take a project here, we talk to the hotels around us. What we call emergency preparedness planning. And this is what RERA will emphasize companies like us should do. And we're doing it. So we know where we're going to keep them in the next 10 hours. And we know which hotels we're going to put them. So the insurance covers up to 14 days accommodation. Because by the time investigation kicks in, civil defense, the white police, it's everything takes in. So you need to be ready. And after that, what we have covered on our policies is up to 3 years, either alternative accommodation, similar to the value, or if you are renting your unit as a unit owner, you will be compensated the same rent or a threshold of a rent. So these are the things that will not affect the investment cycle of the investor or whoever is in it.
Tenant or owner, they will all receive the same treatment, right?
Tenant or owner will receive the same emergency accommodation.
Okay.
Yeah, and reallocation. So we give the money to the owner. You have lost your tenant. Your tenant wants to rent somewhere else. We've given you the money, you pay to that. So in a way, you haven't lost as an owner.
In terms of rental loss, some in case that this goes for 6 months or 1 year, and you don't get rental income, there is insurance. It's covered. For
Under our policies, rental loss up to 3 years is covered.
Up to 3 years.
Yes, because we have to assume this building will take 3 years to rebuild, God forbid.
Right. But this is part of the common this service charge, right? Or each unit owner has to pay different.
It's a line item in the budget insuring your buildings. And you have public liability, which is the second one, which is important that we accommodate.
What about the fire? This is a question, I don't know from my... I don't know if I will say the name of the tower. What about the fire that happened in our building in, I don't want to say the building, in JLT? Insurance was paid really late after years.
I cannot comment to that, to be honest. It could be a legal issue.
It's very specific, yes.
So excuse us, we'll not be able to answer the question.
Well, I would say that the insurance policy have to be written carefully and the wordings have to be looked at carefully to make sure the insurer complies.
Yes, this is an insurance question. Exactly.
Hopefully next time we will host an insurance expert to tell us more about insurance. There are a lot of questions and we have about 8 minutes, so I'll try my best to take all these questions. Dr. Shahram, what happens if we don't pay service charges? Under the new law,
Yes.
compared to the old law, what happens?
Yeah, so my understanding is that there's a lien on the unit if service charges are not paid. That was the case before as well, but now I believe the lien is exercised by the management company. And so what does that mean? That means you have a title deed, and that title deed is clean. You don't have a mortgage, you don't have anything. However, if you don't pay your service charges, it's like a blemish on your title deed, a lien that can be filed against it legally, and in turn that means that you can go to court, or that can be enforced against you and your title in court. How that plays out in the courts and how fast and efficiently and how willing courts are to enforce that, we're going to have to wait and see.
So I think as per the new law, the rental dispute center land department will be acting as a court in the owners association,
Correct.
which will make things fast, right? So Samar, do you have any take on that? Do you have issues as management company of non-payment?
Of course.
How do you deal with that?
I mean, ultimately, we need to help people. Sometimes it's tough times. We need to make sure everybody is paying at least part payments, etc. But if people totally ignore paying service fees, ultimately what's written in the law that we will issue a 30-day notice for you to comply. At least come and speak to us, perhaps put a payment plan or pay something. We will look at case-to-case basis as we do. But if that fails, that you don't come over or you don't discuss it, then it will go after 30 days to the rental dispute center, like Mahmoud mentioned. Right. And they will have their own regulations, probably how to proceed, which we don't know yet as management companies.
Great, but we always tell people you have to pay the service charge because this is
Absolutely.
how we take care of the buildings, and at the end of the day, it's the value of your building.
Yes.
Question on the relationship between owners and tenants. Some management companies try to force, take some actions against tenants so the owner pay the service charge and so on and so forth.
No.
For you as a management company, what's your relation with tenants? What's their responsibility?
Like I mentioned before, they live in the community and we need to make sure they are treated with utmost respect, looked after, their issues and concerns are dealt with, like anyone who occupies this unit. Our relationship towards the owner is different. Let's say on a legal matter, service fees, etc., legality. But the owner could be living and he could be a tenant in his own building. So we have to make sure service requests are attended to, making sure the customer experience is happy, all of that. Nothing will change. In our books, whoever lives in the community should be treated fairly and equally. However, we've touched on something else. We shouldn't put any pressure on the tenant or whoever the occupier in relation to service. We cannot cut access card. We cannot stop him from using the gym, the swimming pool, because the service fee factor will be dealt through the rental dispute center.
Correct. That's been part of the issue in the market, I think, is probably where
Absolutely.
the question is going, where there have been, for lack of a better word, illegal practices and people not being allowed to use, I even heard about a case where someone was not allowed to use the elevator to move because the owner had not paid the service charges. So now, as you say, this resolves that issue because it gives clarity. It goes to the rental dispute center, which is known for resolving disputes between tenants and owners quickly. So we expect that it would hopefully do the same in this case.
Great. As we always end up our session with piece of advice, recommendations. So, Samar, I'll give you half a minute to tell us what are the recommendations, how do you advise the owners to deal with the community, what they should do from the common issues you receive, what should be done, what shouldn't be.
I think very important that this law applies to everyone, that they should adhere to the community rules and whatever rules been established and approved by RERA. So everyone has to comply. I think it's an interaction. If you have any issue, you should voice your concern in the proper channels, and you should expect that the management company to comply or give you advice to the If they haven't, you should go to the owners committee and make your complaint there, and then as per the duties of the owners committee, they will raise it to RERA if we haven't complied in 14 days.
Sure. Dr. Shahram, legally, as a lawyer, what's your advice to people living in jointly owned properties and properties that have owners committee, have management company?
Sure.
What are the recommendations?
So I think for those who've been here for a number of years, I would say this new law gives us clarity. I think it gives us stability in an area which was perhaps mysterious or confusing to some, and that's very positive. On the issue of service charges, and I know that some people have discussed those, I think the comment on service charges and whether they will increase or decrease is that you have to remember that RERA has always exercised very tight control on service charges, has really tried to squeeze, but while maintaining quality, to have stable service charges optimized. And so I think that's going to continue. So I wouldn't, in my own opinion, wouldn't be too concerned about that. I think the other concern that owners may have is the issue of rights. They may say that under the old law we had these rights, we could go to court, etc. My answer to that would be you still have rights in the sense that it's being centralized. Now you can deal with RERA, who is very much involved in the supervision of this process, as well as, of course, there's the dispute center that can be gone to. So I would say that many of these issues have been dealt with, and overall it appears to me to be a scheme that is looking forward and is going to be for the benefit of Dubai.
Great, and if I have an advice as well to complement what Dr. Shahram and Samer said, for investors who want to invest in Dubai, it's not enough to know the current price of the property. Look at the property, how is it managed, the service charge, how much your yearly expenses, do your calculations, do your feasibility. At the end of the day, this new law came at the right time to give more assurance to owners that service charges are not going to be calculated randomly. They have a system. So with this, I would like to thank everyone who was with us today live, whoever asked us questions. Sorry for those who we couldn't answer their questions. We will still answer your questions offline. Thanks, Dr. Shahram. Thank you, Samer. Thank you, Bayut team. Thank you so much for giving people such great information. And as we get more clarity from RERA and Land Department on the new regulations, we will come back to you. But please feel free, tell us what kind of topics you want us to discuss in next real estate bites. We had almost 1 million viewers for the last 6 sessions, and we want you to get the best out of these sessions. So please tell us what you want us to cover next time. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great day. Thank you.